I think it's fair to say that week 1 of the Championship did not disappoint. We had a whole bunch of action which we will be discussing in today's video, guys. So as always, get all your thoughts in the comments down below as to what you made of your team's performance on the opening weekend. We've also got a game going on tonight as well between Huddersfield and Derby County. Before we do get into talking about any of the games, I will include your guys' comments on screen now. So if any of you did successfully manage to get any of your score predictions correct, then I will include your comment on screen. Now, apologies if your comment isn't on there. We just had a bunch of them. I couldn't fit them all on. But this week, I managed to get one of my score predictions correct. I managed to get the Swansea against Hull game correct, and FIFA also got one of theirs correct, predicting the Brentford against Birmingham game. So it's 1-1 between me and FIFA at this point in time. If you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure you do leave a like. But without any further ado, let's hop into talking about some of these games. And starting today out with Luton's game against Middlesbrough on Friday night. This game had absolutely everything, and a lot of things we said in the preview about Luton turned out to be true in this game, really. They were looking really good going forward, and a little bit suspect at the back. It was Borough who got things going with this game. Ashley Fletcher heading them 1-0 in front, but Luton responded really well to that. Solly Bradley, the centre-back, with an absolute fantastic finish, chesting it down and hitting it on the half volley to rifle it in the top corner past Randolph. Craney then gave Luton the lead after the ball was swinging from the corner, but Middlesbrough came back in the first half once again, this time through a Sombolonga. A little bit sloppy from Luton in the build-up to this one. They gave the ball away in midfield, trying to play out from the back. Borough then pounced on that, and the shot, you know, it was a mistake from Sluga, the goalkeeper, sort of palmed it into the back of his own net after what could have been a pretty comfortable save. In fairness to Sluga, though, moments before that, he had made an absolutely fantastic save against Marvin Johnson, so I'll let him off on that occasion. And in the second half, the game still had that real intensity to it. Borough took the lead once again, making it through to Lewis Wing with an absolutely unbelievable curling effort into the top corner. We accused Borough of being a little bit boring last season under Tony Pulis, but you can't throw that accusation about them with this game. They were looking good going forward. Borough had the chance to wrap it up with a penalty, but Sombolonga absolutely horrifically shanked it over the bar. One of the worst penalties I've seen in quite a while, actually. And Luton bring it back to 3-3 after the ball fell to Collins inside the box. He was always going to take that chance, and Luton had the chance to win it very late on in this game, but Dan Randolph made one absolutely unbelievable reflex save to keep the score at 3-3, proving once again he is one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship. It ended 3-3. It was an incredible start to the season. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of Luton as the season goes on. I thought their transitions in midfield to attack were looking really good. Middlesbrough also had some nice moves going forward. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do for the rest of this season, and just a really good way to kick off the season. I thought we learned quite a bit about those two sides in that game. Into Saturday's games, we then had Barnsley beating Fulham by 1-0. A brilliant way for Barnsley to kick off their Championship campaign. They went unbeaten at home for the whole of last season, and they'll be looking to continue this trend going into this year. Fulham, I was surprised by how poor they looked. First off, especially, there was no urgency in that side to get forward. Midfield, there was little creativity, and defensively, Barnsley were absolutely running through them with the balls they were putting in, going in behind. Luke Thomas scored the first goal of the game. Quite suspect defending from Fulham. It was a nice ball chipped over the top. Thomas outstrengthed Brian on that left-hand side. Got into the box. The two Fulham centre-backs didn't know whether to come or go, and he then managed to slip the ball underneath the goalkeeper. Barnsley, for the rest of that first half, were absolutely fantastic. Whenever Fulham got the ball into the midfield, Barnsley would press instantly and look to get the ball to either flank. Malik Wilkes was someone who looked really good for this game, really direct running. Into the second half, Fulham did improve slightly. I thought that they were looking a little bit better. They were creating a few more chances. I actually thought that Fulham's performance got a lot better when Anthony Knockout came on. He's someone who I think should be starting next week. They started to create a few more chances, but Barnsley defended well. Radlinger, their new goalkeeper, popped up with some decent saves. And with how the whole 90 minutes went, Barnsley were more than deserving of all 3 points in this one, so a really good way for them to kick off their season. Fulham still got quite a bit to do. I'm not convinced by them defensively still. And then we had Charlton beating Blackburn by 2-1, so all 3 of the newly promoted clubs going unbeaten on the opening weekend, and not an easy place to go to, Ewood Park. In terms of Blackburn, I thought a lot of their weaknesses were probably exposed in this game. Throughout the transfer window so far, they spent a lot of money on, you know, their midfield and attack, improving those areas, but defence has largely gone unnoticed, and you could probably tell that from this game here today. Charlton took their chances when they came around. The first goal, a really nicely worked goal actually. They were fast going forward. Johnny Williams had the ball on the edge of the box, a really nice chip to the far post where Ben Purington was there arriving late. No Blackburn players picked him up, and he had a free shot on goal inside the 6-yard box. After that goal went in, the Blackburn defence were just sort of stood looking at each other saying, how's this happened? Blackburn did get back into the game in the second half. There was quite a bit of fortune with the goal they scored. The ball whipped in from a corner. It was headed off the line by Charlton, but then came in back off the head of Phillips, the goalkeeper, and Blackburn were level. At that point, I thought they may then kick on, and they did have a few moves going forward in the second half, but that final touch of quality just wasn't there for them. You can see by the match stats, 14 shots but only 2 on target for Rovers. And in the end, it was Charlton who came up with the winner. Lyle Taylor this time with the faintest of touches inches after the ball fell to him from a corner to make it 2-1 to Charlton. A fantastic way for them to start the season. A lot of people, you know, probably myself included, had wrote Charlton off for this year with the constraints that Lee Bowyer's working with there, but there's clearly, you know, a real team spirit and morale with that group of players he's got at the moment, and the result goes to show that you can never write them off from any game. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on for the rest of this season. Blackburn still got weaknesses to address. One player who did stand out for Rovers though was Bradley Johnson. Heard very good things from him about his debut. And then we had one of the most ridiculous games going on this weekend between Brentford and Birmingham. Just look at those stats. Brentford having 76% possession, 15 shots to Birmingham's 24%, and 1 shot throughout the entire game. And what happened at full time? Birmingham walked away with all 3 points with a 1-0 away victory. If nothing else sums up the championship, I mean, what an away performance that was from Birmingham. I have to say, Brentford started this game out really brightly. They had a lot of good spells in possessions. They were working Birmingham going forward. As Brentford always do, they were working the channels very well with players cutting inside. Canos and Watkins were both causing problems. They hit the crossbar twice in the opening 15 minutes. And then out of nowhere, Birmingham take the lead. The ball swung into just outside the box where Christian Pedersen's there with an absolute outrageous bullet header from the edge of the box, which just hurls into the top corner. And that was Birmingham's really only move going forward for the entire match. That was the only shot they had. After that, Brentford continued to probe going forward, but things just weren't clicking for them. It just wasn't happening on this occasion. In terms of Brentford, interesting to note that both Ben Rama and Maupay were not in the side for this one. Obviously, as transfer speculation continues to go around those two players, I'll have a transfer video out tomorrow when we discuss that in a little bit more depth, but it just wasn't to be for Brentford this time. After that, we then have Millwall beating my side Preston by 1-0. Not the ideal way for North End to start the season. I think, especially after last season with how poor we were at the start of the year, I thought we'd really be up for this game, but it turned out to be incredibly average from North End. For the first sort of half an hour, we were playing alright without really creating any chances. Probably one of the best chances of the game for North End came fairly early on when we had a corner. The ball fell to Alan Brown on the edge of the box. He hit it, but Matt Smith was able to head away the danger. Soon after that, Millwall then took the lead on the 33rd minute. Conor Mahoney going up against Tom Clark for 90 minutes was never going to end well for us realistically. Tom Clark does look a little bit clunky, a little bit out of position when he's played at fullback, especially when it is against a tricky winger. I like the look of Mahoney. I think he'll go on to do well for Millwall this season. He was able to get his way past Clark, whip the ball into the box, into Jed Wallace, who was able to then steer past Declan Rudd. Declan Rudd, a few questions asked there as well. He got 2 hands on the ball, but it still ended up in the back of the net. After we had gone down as well, there was no real reaction from North End. You know, we had a lot of sort of meaningless possession for this game, being on the ball with no urgency to go forward, and that was quite disappointing to see actually. Even after the changes we made, you know, bringing on the likes of Stockley, Green and Bowden, we still had nothing going forward for us. I think there's going to have to be a reaction from North End next week, because that performance right there, it wasn't good enough, and Millwall would deserve it of all 3 points. And then we have Wednesday beating Reading by 3-1. A really good start for Wednesday. Despite Reading having some early chances in this one, it was the away side who took the lead. Kadeem Harris received the ball out on the left hand side, still had a lot of work to do, completely blitzed past his defender and then snuck the ball underneath the goalkeeper. Keeper maybe could have done a little bit better, but Kadeem Harris is someone who I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on at Wednesday this season. One type of player they've been lacking over the past few years in my view has been someone with, you know, a bit of pace that likes to run at people, and Kadeem Harris could be that man for them. Reading did get back into the game in the second half. Yaku Mete with a looping header. That only lasted for a couple of minutes before Hutchinson managed to get Wednesday back in front. The end of this game was really quite dramatic actually. Modou Barrow was racing through on goal for Reading when Westwood, for whatever reason, decides to come out of his goal, completely takes him out and is shown a straight red card. He had, I think it was Odebajo who was keeping up with Modou Barrow. Westwood probably should have left it to him to try and make the tackle before he tried to intervene, so obviously Westwood will now be missing for Wednesday's next game. But being down to 10 men didn't seem to affect them, and in the 97th minute, Lucas Jow wrapped things up with a really classy finish actually. The ball fell to him, he sort of rotated on the spot and then managed to get it past the goalkeeper into the far post. Really nice finish from Lucas Jow there. But Wednesday starting their season as they mean to go on. It was a really good away performance from them. Looking forward to seeing more of them as the season goes on. With Reading, still got a couple of areas they need to look into, I think. And then we had QPR beating Stoke by 2-1. With Stoke, the same problems persisting there that were brought over from last season. For this whole game, they only had 1 shot on target. But I have to give a lot of praise to QPR from this performance. There were some absolutely fantastic moves that they had going forward, and considering that this is, you know, Mark Warburton's first game in charge, it's pretty much a new 11 of players that have been brought in on, you know, a shoestring budget, either mostly on free transfers or on loan deals. QPR played some brilliant football and Stoke couldn't get near them at times. The opening goal came after just 8 minutes. I'm not sure what Jack Butland was doing for this one, trying to chase the player down the left hand side. The ball was flicked into the box where Jordan Hugill pretty much had a tap in to make it 1-0 to QPR. But the second goal was definitely the highlight of this game. If you've not seen it by now, the goal scored by Eze from the start to finish, make sure you go and watch it, because it was absolutely fantastically worked from QPR. Starting out with Joe Lumley at the back, working forward, Eze picked up the ball around the halfway line and just drove straight at Stoke. Really direct run, and this could be a really big season for him because it was an absolutely beautiful beautiful finish. Sweeps the ball past the plate and tucks it into the bottom corner past Butland. Absolutely brilliant finish. It was set up for an interesting end though, as Sam Clucas did finally get Stoke back into the game, making it 2-1, and there was a free kick sent into the box near the end where Joe Lumley was sort of caught in no man's land. I'm not sure what he was doing, where Stoke could have got back into the game, but they couldn't capitalise on that, and it was QPR walking out with all 3 points. So Stoke still got a lot to work on, not really a convincing way for them to start the season, but a lot of positives from QPR to take from that one for sure. Then next up we had Swansea beating Hull by 2-1. This one really being a game of two halves. Swansea were a little bit slow out the blocks for this one, Hull taking the lead after just 3 minutes through Kamil Grosicki, and for that first half it was really Hull who were playing the better football actually, and they deservedly went into half time with that 1-goal lead. In the second half though, obviously words have been said in the dressing room, and Swansea really turned up the intensity. They were much better in that second half, created a lot more chances. In the 48th minute, Borja Baston bagged his first goal of the season, obviously probably the natural replacement they've got there for Ollie McBurney. And then barely a minute had gone by when Swansea got into the lead for this one through Van der Horn. Not really sure what Hull were doing defensively for this one. The ball was looped into the far post. George Long, the Hull goalkeeper, I think thinking the ball had gone out the play, seemed to just stop for a split second. The ball then fell to Van der Horn at the far post, and he managed to make it 2-1 to Swansea. And then for the rest of that second half, it was a very good performance, a lot more control in their play. We got to see a glimpse of Peterson, their new signing as well. Interested to see how he gets on over the season. And Hull couldn't really muster up many chances in that second half. So with Swansea turning that around, a good way for them to start the season. After that, we saw Wigan beat Cardiff by 3-2. This one being a lot more open than I thought it would be actually. Joe Riles gave Cardiff the lead in the first half after he'd fired through a crowd of bodies that tried to block it on the line for Wigan. Going into the second half, it had to be Josh Windass though, who was the main player for Wigan. After he'd fluffed his penalty earlier on, I thought that may affect his confidence, but he was really their key card going forward for this one. It was his free kick that was eventually turned in by Jacobs for the equaliser, and the goal that Windass scored himself was an absolutely fantastic finish. It was Sean Morrison who was standing him up. In terms of from a defending point of view, he got Windass into a decent area, but Windass still managed to get a shot away into the far post to make it 2-1 to Wigan. And he was that sort of hit and miss player last season, but if he can show more of what he was showing in that second half for Wigan more consistently throughout the year, then they've got a decent player on their hands there. Cardiff managed to get back into the game. Bobby Reid doing some nice work down the left hand side, got the ball into Omar Bogle, and the former Wigan player slotted it in to make it 2-2. His celebration was also quite an interesting one, but that was fairly short lived as Wigan managed to wrap things up 5 minutes later with a fantastic strike from Evans. The Cardiff defence didn't really know what to do with him, whether to engage or stand off. They obviously didn't think he had it in his locker to pick up the top corner from where he was, but from outside the box, brilliantly hit it and handed Wigan all 3 points on the opening day. You have to say, you know, Wigan ended last season very well. Their home record was very good last season as well. It'll be interesting to see how they get on the road this season, because that was their major downfall from last season, because if they can sort out that, then who knows what's possible for this Wigan side. You know, they have made some decent transfers lately, so getting off to a good start for this season. It'll be interesting to see how they get on next week against Preston. And then we have West Brom beating Forest by 2-1. Muric having the debut to forget for Forest, but it was Forest who had probably the better of the first opening 10 minutes or so. They were decent for the first 10 minutes, and then after that, the performance drastically went downhill. But Matty Cash gave the home side the lead, a nice flick inside by Adoma. Cash made the run going forward, and he slotted it in past Sam Johnson at his near post. Johnson probably should have done a little bit better with that, you know, beating at his near post from outside the box. So there definitely wasn't the worst goalkeeping error of this game. Edwards, who I was impressed with throughout the game, got West Brom back into this one, made a run going into the box, jinxed his way past a couple of Forest defenders, got a fairly tame shot away into Muric where you'd expect a comfortable save, somehow managed to squirm under him and go into the back of the net. And then 10 minutes after that, Matty Phillips makes it 2-1 to West Brom with an outrageous goal that came from absolutely nowhere from the right wing. An out-swinging cross coming into the box caught Muric out, and before you know it, West Brom are 2-1 in front. And then from the second half, there wasn't really that many incidents to talk about. From Forest, some plays weren't really up to their usual standards. Joe Lolly wasn't really offering much for this one. Lewis Drabin looked isolated. There was no real service from him from anywhere throughout the game. And I would expect better from Forest as the season goes on, but Slaven Bilic getting off to a winning start for West Brom, it was an interesting game to say the least. And then yesterday's game saw Leeds beat Bristol City by 3-1. Pablo Hernandez really stole the show for this one. He was absolutely superb. Scoring the first goal, he got the ball inside the D, spun on the ball and just picked out the top corner effortlessly. If we're being realistic, he is probably the best player in the league. He's just absolutely fantastic to watch. He then created the second goal for Patrick Bamford in the second half after some nice skill from him. Put the ball on the plate for Bamford, and all he had to do was tap it in to make it 2-0. And then Leeds going forward on the counter-attack. Eventually Harrison prodded it in the 72nd minute to make it 3-0 to Leeds. I have to say I was quite underwhelmed by Bristol City. I don't think there were many positives that they could have took from this performance. Leeds, for some parts, didn't even need to click out a second gear. They were controlling this game without Bristol City offering much, really. Vyman did pull a goal back on the 79th minute, but realistically they weren't offering that much going forward. And that's saying something, because Kiko Casilla we need to have a bit of a chat about. Leeds fans' blood pressure by the end of the season will be sky high watching this guy, because I was watching the game and oh my word, I don't know how Leeds fans are going to cope. He's an absolute madman in goal, whether it be coming out of the box to close someone down, looking to do a fake shot to get past a Bristol City player inside his own box or something like that, crosses coming into the box which he couldn't seem to handle. It's going to be a hectic season for him, and I'd be interested to know, just from the general Leeds fan, what's your opinion of Kiko Casilla? But nevertheless, a very good way for Leeds to kickstart their season, and overall I was impressed. I thought they looked quite good going forward. But guys, there you have it. That will now wrap it up for this first episode of the Championship Roundup. Obviously, we do have a game going on tonight, Huddersfield going up against Derby, which I'll be discussing in tomorrow's transfer rumour video. In terms of my results of the weekend, definitely a few contenders for this one. There were quite a few big ones. I think myself personally, I'm going to give it to Barnsley for beating Fulham by 1-0. Newly promoted, beating a newly relegated club. The odds were stacked against them, but it was a really good home performance at Oakwell. And then my goal of the weekend, oh, now this is a very tough one. I'll leave a poll for you to vote on because there's a lot of contenders for this. I think the goal that brought me the most joy this weekend was Eze's goal against Stoke City. It was a fantastic team goal. Great build-up play. He picked the ball up on the halfway line, drove into that Stoke defence and put it past Butland. There's definitely other contenders, but myself personally, I'm going to give it to Eze. But guys, that will now wrap it up for this video. So if you did go on to enjoy, make sure you leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you do subscribe for some regular Championship content. Leave all your thoughts in the comments down below how your club got off to the start of the season. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.